So now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Janelle James, Senior Vice President with Ipsos UU. Janelle, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Ellen, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We are having a few tech issues, so I do want to start by just saying everyone's name and having them wave so you know who we have on screen. But before we do that, just thank you so much for all of your interest and participation in this event. It is Black Business Month, and of course, we not only always like to bring people together to talk about great things in business, but this is such a wonderful opportunity to highlight and spotlight women-owned and minority-owned businesses. Pleased to say that we not only got a ton of registrants for this event, but we got over 70 women and minority-owned businesses that registered to be featured. So we will be compiling a list and sharing it along with the recording. So really excited to see so many businesses interested just across sectors, just really a testament to all the awesomeness that exists. So first up, I just want Stephanie Espy, who's the CEO and founder of Math SP and STEM Gems, just to say, just a quick wave so everyone knows who you are. Next up, Dawn Carr, who's the founder and CEO of Mahogany Insights. Sophia Hernandez, who's the global marketing lead for TikTok, business marketing lead for TikTok. Omar Hawkins, who's the director of financial inclusion products for Amex. And last but not least, LaShawn Solomon. She is not on camera. She's the Chief DEI Officer for Pyramid Consulting, which is based in Atlanta. And so we're having a few tech issues there. She may be able to transition to camera once we get started, but I just want to remind everyone that she's here, and I will be calling on her so you can hear from her. So to get this conversation started, I would love each of you to introduce yourself by telling us, you don't have to say your name because we know your name, telling us your title, your role, how your role involves supporting, partnering, or leading minority or women-owned business, and maybe just highlight a project quickly that just exemplifies the work that you do in this space. Dawn, do you want to get us started?
Sure. So hi, everyone. I am the founder and CEO of Mahogany Insights. We are a strategy and market research firm, and we do general market consulting and market research, but our focus is primarily in helping clients connect more authentically with Black consumers and other diverse and emerging segments. So that's our focus. My background, I started as a strategic consulting with Accenture. I then did about 10 years in brand management with P&G, and also did some nonprofit strategic consulting in Ghana before I found my way actually into market research at Ipsos. But my focus has always been on global consumer understanding for CPG, tech, and financial services. And then my secondary focus was multicultural. So about 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to find a way to merge those skills. This is like my form of activism. You guys will hear me talk about it all the time because I feel like this is a really big area when we get a seat at the table. I get a seat at the table at least, and I get a chance to make sure that the voices of consumers that pay and vote with their dollars are actually heard and interpreted correctly. So I do that. My clients are everything from Jergens and Google, LinkedIn, MasterCard, P&G, et cetera. And I do them. I am both MBE and WMBE certified. We work directly with clients as well as subprime through Ipsos.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sophia, you're up next. Oh,
Cannot hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay, great. And I global business marketing. I think maybe someone needs to go on mute. Global business marketing here, and what that means is I work with all of the brands, whether you're a small business or a mid-sized brand or a big brand like the ones Dawn just mentioned, that she partners with. By the way, congratulations on that, Dawn. That's incredible. And I help them figure out how to make their businesses successful on TikTok. I also co-founded a company called Black on Black with my husband, and it's an apparel line that's dedicated to spreading messages of social justice and empowerment for the BIPOC community. So as a Latina, similar to what Dawn said, navigating, corporate America as a senior leader, it can be challenging. And so I see that as my form of activism, as well as everything I do in my role. And I'm really happy to be here for this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Stephanie, you're up next.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am the founder of Math SP, Strategies and Problem Solving, where I help students starting in middle school become more STEM fluent. My background is in chemical engineering, and I am on a mission to get more people of color, in particular girls, into STEM careers such as chemical engineering. And about 7 years ago, I wrote a book and also started a nonprofit organization called STEM Gems. And the mission of STEM Gems is to, again, help girls to see themselves as scientists, technologists, engineers, and mathematicians. I partner with colleges and high schools, middle schools to just really show girls what women in STEM look like and to give them role models and mentors and curriculum so that they can help just kind of understand more about what these careers are all about and to drive their interest and passion for STEM as well.
And Stephanie didn't say this, but she's an MIT graduate, I think in chemical engineering. And she's also a top voice in education on LinkedIn with over 150,000 followers. So she is really doing the work, and we're excited to have her here. Next up, Omar.
Thank you so much, Janelle. Can you guys hear me well? Okay, great. So my name is Omar Hawkins. As was mentioned, I lead the financial inclusion product management team at American Express, and specifically in our business blueprint and banking organization. So my team's remit, our entire reason for being, is to improve access to capital, tools, and resources for underserved minority business owners. And one of the ways that we do that is to make sure that we're showing up in the places where these communities are congregating. So very recently, I've had the pleasure of traveling to Atlanta for 2 such conferences. One was called Black in E-Commerce, and just last weekend, InvestFest, which is the brainchild of the brilliant gentleman behind Earn Your Leisure. So we want to make sure that we're in the places where small business owners and entrepreneurs are, and we're representing American Express and our products and services that we want to provide as a resource to help those small business owner communities. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And last but not least, LaShawn.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is LaShawn Solomon, Chief Diversity Officer and Assistant Vice President of DEI Strategy and Portfolio Management at Pyramid Consulting. Pyramid Consulting is one of the largest minority-owned IT staffing firms in the U.S. and is just very excited to have experienced significant growth as a minority-owned business. I also manage Pyramid's intentionally inclusive efforts around diversity recruiting and marketing, employee and contingent staffing engagement, customer partnerships, and community impact across the entire company portfolio. And prior to joining Pyramid Consulting, I've held various leadership roles in marketing, business development, partnerships, strategic operations, learning and development at companies like Tact, NBC Universal, HBO, and Cox Communications. And I'm excited to be a part of this discussion today.
Thank you so much. So the next question I have for everyone is kind of a creative one or a weird one, depending how you want to think about it. I would love for you to come up with a nickname for yourself, but not any old nickname. I'm interested in your minority or women-owned business nickname that helps me understand what your priorities are when you're thinking about businesses in this space. Dawn, do you want to go first?
Yes, coming off mute. So I guess when I think about what it is that we're trying to do here, like what comes to mind for me is expansion, like both expansion from a business standpoint, but also expansion in the way that market research views people of color and our voices there in the way that we can then influence the way businesses think about these voices and building their businesses and brands. So I think about it as expansion. So the word that comes to me is dark energy, which I am like a huge astronomy nut. So probably some of you may not know what dark energy is, but dark energy is it's a physics. It's like one of the forces in nature. And what's really interesting about it is that no one really knows what it is, but it is out there expanding the universe at an expansive rate, right? So one of the interesting things about it, though, and why I like connect it, is that for like the universe is like 13 billion years old. This is like some data, but for the first 10 billion of it, dark energy was nothing. Like it was just kind of out on its own, and there were all these other forces that were kind of like going to drive the way the universe was supposed to work. But because it was out on its own, doing its thing, and nothing was really bothering it, it got all of this momentum. And now, like, you know, 2/3 of its life, it was nothing. And now it's influencing the way the entire rest of the world is going. So that's how I hope that we kind of approach what we're doing here with the impact and the influence of that. So
Love it. Thank you. Sophia, nickname.
Yeah, I'll go quick. I know we have a lot to get through. I would call myself the disruptor. I think that's kind of what we need. And I'm all about disrupting the rooms of sameness and have been my entire career. And so, yeah, I'll take that one.
Love it. Omar, you're up next.
Thank you. So I'll be quick as well. I'll just say trifecta. So there's 3 objectives, which I mentioned earlier: improving access to capital, improving access to tools, improving access to resources. And there's also 3 B's in the name of the business unit that I'm in: business, blueprint, and banking. So hopefully that's easy to remember.
Love that. The trifecta: capital, tools, and resources. Stephanie, you're up next.
So I call myself the visibility queen because only 19% of engineers are women and only 3% of engineers are Black women. And there's a lot of work to be done to get more girls and people of color thinking about STEM and a career in STEM. My passion, especially on social media, is visibility of underrepresented, lesser known, people that should be known, people that are working hard behind the scenes, really just about increasing visibility and helping to give faces to all the things that we take for granted every day that we can't connect to a real person. So I commit to that on a daily basis to help increase visibility of women in STEM.
Love it. Last but not least, LaShawn.
So I like to refer to my nickname as my call sign. So earlier this year, my employer, we had our all hands meeting. And so the theme was Top Gun, and my call sign was Electric Cheetah. The reason why is because I always bring energy when I'm on a stage, whether it's in person or virtual, and also in bringing that enthusiasm to the work that I do. Cheetah, because I am a Leo. So naturally it had to be some type of feline-esque essence to it. And I also like to go fast and strategically.
Wonderful. This is a great way to start because it really puts in mind the things that are important to keep in mind with these businesses. So I'm hearing disruption, I'm hearing energy, I'm hearing visibility. Paint a picture for me and for the audience. What is it like being the owner or a leader in a minority or women-owned business? Stephanie, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I just want to start off by saying I never intended on being an entrepreneur. All throughout, you mentioned Danelle, I went to MIT, studied chemical engineering. My goal in life was to be a chemical engineer. I never saw myself as a business owner, entrepreneur. That happened just by experiences and things that have happened throughout the years that sort of led me to this path. But what I found is that there's a lot, every day is new and different. There's always a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of reward, especially once you can figure out how to accomplish something. And so I've been an entrepreneur for about 12 years now. And, some things I feel like I'm just now figuring out. So it's a daily figure it out, use your network. As social media changes, as, through the pandemic, lots of changes there, you have to be very nimble and adjust. And again, constantly figure things out. So having a solid network has been critically important for me. I don't know the specifics of being a woman or woman of color or not, but I definitely tap into my network all the time. And the network is what allows me to continue to grow, to be honest with you. So that's how I started the business 12 years ago, was starting with my network. And that's how really I've been able to build and grow over time as well. So I just want to emphasize that because the power of a network is everything. And that's, you know, the network that you grew up in, your college network, your professional network. It could be your parent network, your, you know, if you have kids, your school network. I'm a part of a lot of different communities in the Atlanta area and beyond. So just tapping into those has really been hugely beneficial. And I think as a woman of color is critically important. I think sometimes I have a tendency to not want to ask for help. That's just how I was all throughout, you know, K through 12. I've always felt things just kind of came naturally and easy for me up until a certain point, and then asking for help has always been a little bit of a challenge. But I've learned that asking for help is not doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't mean you're not good enough or not skilled enough. It just means that you have questions that have yet to be answered. And so that has been something that I've embraced throughout the years, is asking for help and reaching out to the network and constantly learning and growing so that I can continue to drive the business forward.
Love that. Thank you. Dawn, anything you want to build in terms of being an entrepreneur or business owner?
Yeah, I feel sweet right now because that is exactly like what I would say. And I think like for me, the biggest plus has been the freedom and like the transformation that I personally am going through. So I've been 2 years versus 12 years, and it's been a huge transformation going from corporate, which is where I was all the time, and where you have to learn to lead, but lead in the mindset of a master vision that, you know, you might be part of, but also others are going to, where you have to set your own vision. And so stepping into going from like an employee to stepping into a consultant to stepping into a CEO, like transformation has been a big thing that has changed my whole life. And then I think the other piece, what you're talking about, was find your tribe, which is what I had on here, which was like, it's very isolating. I think I was not expecting how isolating it can feel because you are one of the few in your network doing that. And so finding that tribe of people becomes so critically important. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sophia, I see you nodding, and I know you have a really dynamic role in that you're also a business owner as well as a corporate leader. Can you give me some perspective, paint the picture for me, what you see, you know, the challenges or just the day-to-day of being a business owner?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to double down on what Dawn and Stephanie said and just really focus on the point of it feels very solitary. Whether you're navigating a large corporate environment like I have my entire career, or you're starting to build a business as a small business owner, or you're an entrepreneur that's looking for funding. I'm in a lot of these conversations regularly, and it just feels like there are not a lot of us out there who are equipped with the information or the support to continue to move things forward. And so it feels very solitary. And so this concept of network or tribe is so important. I think we need to come together more and help each other find those resources. So I'm so inspired by everyone on this call, but also Omar and the things that you're doing in your role to bring those resources. And from a TikTok perspective, we've done things like, you know, start a Support Black Business Accelerator program, donate, you know, $1 million plus to Black Girl Ventures. Like, those things are impacted by those of us that are in these organizations. And so the only way we're going to break this solitude is if we start to exercise our power and our influence and also come together, because we're stronger in numbers. And in Spanish, we say, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido, which is like the you know, a group united can't be divided.
Love that. Omar, I see a lot of nodding. Anything you want to add to this? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I don't want to add. I think the women said it exceptionally well. I think we can move on.
Okay. So one of the things that I found so interesting, 1,800 women-owned businesses are created each day in the U.S., 1,800. And Black women are 6 times more likely to start a business than white men. Why do you think that is? What is driving that? Anyone want to jump in with thoughts on that?
I'll jump in. You know, when I saw that stat, I was really shocked. You know, like, I didn't know those numbers. However, it's exciting, honestly. And my personal opinion is that I feel that For so long, we've been going to the grocery store, Target, whatnot, buying our favorite brands, buying our mascara and our, soaps and things like that. And I think Black women have just said, we can come up with something that's even better, and we can market our own products and get them also into Targets. I think it's just more the empowerment feeling of, why not, contribute to, instead of being just a consumer, but be a creator as well. Why not? What's keeping us from being a creator, creating our own products that we have either been using for years or feel like, the market is lacking, or we could do it a little bit better. So I feel that there's just been this empowerment movement for women and Black women in particular to decide to get the idea and make it actually happen. And I've seen that from, the Lip Bar, one of my favorite lipstick brands, the lipstick market is saturated, but they still have found a niche as a Black-owned, producer of lipsticks. And as a Black woman, I love that I can buy their products and say that it is made by a fellow Black woman. So I think that sense of like supporting each other and, creating versus just consuming has been something that I think in particular Black women have really gravitated towards. And I think since the pandemic, we're home during that time and we're thinking of ways to make more money, multiple streams of income. That's just been something that I think Black women have really taken charge and going from just the idea of it to actually producing it.
Is it more of a push or a pull, Dawn?
So I saw this and I had two reactions to it. The first reaction was, okay, well, that's not surprising. We've always worked. We've always been entrepreneurial since the very start of time. Like, we always are the ones that have been there supporting since Reconstruction, since slavery. Like, we've always had this ethic in us. So that is good and great and all of that. I think the part to me that when I read this, I feel like there's a part missing. And the other part, because I think like 6 times more likely to start businesses is great, but also Black female founders have $24,000 in annual revenue, which is 6 times less than the average women-owned business. So for me, the issue is like, how are we making sure that these businesses are sustainable and viable? Because a $24,000 in annual revenue business is not a viable solution for our women-owned business who have the desire, the need, and the motivation to do it, right? Only 33% of Black women run mature businesses. So that means they survive past the 5-year mark. Like, there are numbers in this that I think we need to go a little bit further in, because sometimes people can look at that and think, oh, well, then the work is done. Like, we're out here. But there's something fundamental in what we need to be thinking about to give the resources to make sure. Because when I saw that number of 24,000 in annual revenue, I would have never started my business. First of all, I didn't know that number. So y'all don't listen to, like, keep starting your business. But like, because I think that there's something inherently missing in that. Like, we're 6 times more likely to start businesses, yet we make 6 times less. So that's my reaction.
We know that funding is an issue. We know that visibility is an issue. There are lots of other issues. I'm curious, what, if anything, levels or evens the playing field? Are there any advantages other than just like ingenuity or having a great solution? Like, what advantages are you seeing, if any? LaShawn?
Yes, I think the advantages is knowing how to be strategic and utilizing channels like supplier diversity through corporations and leveraging those channels, also leveraging certification organizations and entities, because they exist to help women and minority-owned businesses not only get certified, but also to get access to funding and also to be presented in spaces where they can connect with corporate buyers. And all of that has to be working together consistently in order for those businesses to thrive. But the other challenge that faces minority and women-owned businesses is the certification process. Because in order to get certified, you have to be at a certain revenue point. In order to be at that revenue point, you have to have a certain amount of customers. Customers may not want to work with you until you have built up a reputation. And so you are in this cycle of trying to build your business and also get recognition and also establish credibility. And by doing that, and while trying to accomplish all of that, it is imperative that minority businesses and women-owned businesses seek to build those relationships, leverage those supplier diversity channels in order to get access to those opportunities.
I love what you just shared because, just one moment.
Yes.
I love what you just shared because last year, this is the second time we're doing this event. So super excited about that. But we've issued a survey beforehand to a slew of minority and women-owned businesses. And I was kind of shocked to find that more than half of them weren't certified and didn't have the opportunity to dig deeper. So I love that you outlined that catch-22, so to speak, of needing to be at a certain level to get the support that you need. Omar, did you want to weigh in a little bit?
Yeah, I wanted to just add on to what LaShawn was mentioning, because it's well documented that access to capital is the largest challenge facing underserved minority business owners. And I think, or I don't think, it's also documented all too often, folks are operating under the radar, right, or under the table. And that does not benefit you when it comes time to seek lending, seek financing, or seek grant opportunities. Lending institutions, grant-making institutions, they want to see how long you've been in business, what's your story, what's your revenues, and you have to make sure that your business filings, your tax filings demonstrate that length of time. So you want to make sure that you're not doing yourself a disservice by operating under the radar. The other piece I wanted to mention in support of what LaShawn was mentioning, certainly from an Amex perspective, we have goals and aspirations from a supplier diversity perspective as well. And we look immediately to some of these accrediting entities like U.S. Black Chambers and their Buy Black certification program, NMSDC, which is the National Minority Supplier Diversity Council. And I know that USBC and NMSDC just recently signed a partnership commitment going forward. So I just want to just plus one to some of the comments that LaShawn was making, because these are the activities that business owners can take to help themselves be found, right? When large organizations are looking to identify new vendors, new suppliers, new service providers.
I had a little aha when you were speaking, because I think what's really valuable for the audience to hear is sometimes people think there's like a short-term benefit to being under the radar, and you kind of lose out on a lot of opportunities, networking, funding, by not being able to tell a better story about your business in the long run.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I was just going to say it's 100% when we look at our own underwriting criteria and we compare that to our traditional competition, to other new fintechs, to nonprofit lenders. One of the key aspects is time in business. And the first thing they're going to look for is it 12 months? Is it 24 months? Is this organization a startup? So if you've been operating for a year and a half, 2 years before you get your filings in, then you've really done yourself, unfortunately, a disservice by not having your filings match your actual operating time frame.
Gone.
And I just wanted to say one clarifying thing, because what LaShawn was saying, it does, the NMSDC and the WeBank, those certifications do vary by county. So check yours, because in Dallas, for example, you don't need to be in business or have a certain revenue before you get that certification. So some of you who are in like a Texas region, or I know like in Minnesota, those regions, you have opportunities to still get those certifications, even if you haven't been in business for a certain amount of years or things like that. Those still might be opportunities open for you. So make sure that you're kind of checking in your region, because you might still have the opportunity no matter where you are in that cycle. And then plus one, everything Omar said. Okay.
I know earlier in the conversation, we talked a little bit about mentoring and networking, and I want to dig into that a little bit more. What does a great ally for minority and women-owned businesses look like in your experience?
This is Omar. I'll jump in quickly. I'd love to hear from the business owners as well. But I certainly believe mentorship and networking are incredibly important, but for slightly different reasons, right? As we witnessed post-pandemic, incredible spike in business creation, people were taking the time and taking their creativity and turning hobbies and passions into businesses. But why did they start these things? Because they were passionate about it, not necessarily because they had all this like back office business acumen, right? So from a mentorship perspective, if you can identify somebody you trust who has been down the road and can point out the pitfalls so that you don't have to necessarily encounter those same obstacles, that could be invaluable, right? We talk about time and money that could be lost while you're navigating some of these challenges. So if you can find somebody that you can trust that can impart that lived wisdom, that could be really, really a game changer for small business owners. There's always this old adage around, you can learn by doing, you can learn by seeing, you can learn by hearing, right? And learning by doing, in this case, it might be, too challenging for your business's sustainability. So really I really try to advocate for mentor coaches for small business owners. Networking, on the other hand, also incredibly valuable, but for a slightly different reason. That old adage of iron sharpens iron, right? So if you can find a community of like-minded individuals where you can draw on that energy, right? Especially when you're feeling depleted, you can draw on the energy from the community around you, right? You can see how other folks are navigating some similar challenges, and you might even identify some potential partnership opportunities, right? So you want to put yourself in those spaces where you can, rub elbows and exchange ideas with folks that are on a similar path.
I'm curious. Oh, did someone want to?
I'll just add one more point. I think Omar talked about mentorship, networking. I agree with everything he said. You also mentioned, allyship. And just to kind of touch on that a little bit, I think a good, ally is someone that's going to talk about you when you're not in the room. So you can't be in every room, but you can, if you have allies, then you don't have to be in the room. Someone's going to bring you up. Someone's going to recommend you. Someone's going to suggest your organization. And I think that's been huge for me, because I can't, again, you can't be in every space all the time. But if there's someone who knows what you're doing and who can speak to what you're doing, then that person can say, hey, what about XYZ company? Have you thought about them? They do X, Y, and Z. And so then now, even with you out without not being in the room physically, that follow-up conversation, you get that email, you get the hey, let's talk email or call. And so that is huge. And that's what a good ally can do for you, is really just speak up your name or your company in a room that they're in that you're not. And that's something that someone can easily do, is just top of mind. So in addition to mentorship and networking, just having allies that can talk about your business, your organization, when you're not there is hugely important. And that has led to so many opportunities for me personally.
I would love to switch gears a little bit and talk about strategic partnerships with established companies, and how that can help facilitate growth and address unique challenges. Any examples or experiences anyone wants to share regarding that? LaShawn, do you want to weigh in at all?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm having some internet issues, so thank you all for bearing with me. But in regards to strategic partnerships, those are critical when it comes to growing your business as a minority and or woman owner. And going back to leaning into supplier diversity channels and leveraging those networks, not only to obviously land new business, but also to ask for referrals and connections to other business department leaders and owners throughout that company, because that's also how you're able to formulate building those strategic partnerships, getting access to opportunities. I would also recommend considering having pilot options when it comes to your service. So typically when corporations are considering bringing on a new supplier, they're also assessing risk. How riskful is it going to be to bring on this new supplier? what is the risk associated with the cost investment. And so by being able to offer some agility and some flexibility to those corporations, it helps to just remove those barriers when it comes to building and formulating those strategic partnerships.
Love that perspective. I want to talk a little bit about marketing. You know, in a couple of minutes, we're going to switch gears and sort of start addressing some of the many questions we got from the registration portal. But at the core of a lot of those questions that we got, they seem to be related to marketing and better understanding your customers. And so as you support small businesses, as you think about growing your own businesses, tell me a little bit about the role marketing plays and how you've been innovative, or how you've helped or can help businesses be innovative in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is Omar. I'll jump in terms of some of the resources that we provide, as well as one of the strategic partnerships that we maintain. It's not just about the access to capital, right? You want to help these small business owners build something that's going to be sustainable, right? And that begins with technical assistance and training and webinars like this and self-directed training and things of that nature. So we have a really deep archive on the Amex side called Business Class, where we teach modules on understanding your target market size. What are their characteristics? What are their desires? Really assessing the competitive landscape, right? Where does your product or service fit among the other options that customers have to solve that problem, right? Are you intending to be a low-cost leader? Are you intending to be a premium provider, right? The answer to that question and the competitive landscape is going to have so much impact on other downstream decisions, right? What marketing channels you're going to use, how much you're going to pay from a CPM perspective, right? Your costs of goods sold and your customer service delivery, right? All of that is going to grow out of, okay, who am I? What are my products for this customer set relative to the competitive options? So if we could advise business owners something like extremely highly on the front end, is prioritize that research. Prioritize that research to understand your market potential and what are the needs and preferences of those folks that you identify within your target market.
Any other thoughts? Go for it.
I just wanted to add on to that. So first of all, I love everything that Omar said. And I would just add that one of the most common mistakes that I often see or encounter and have also received feedback on is suppliers or businesses, minority-owned businesses, not having a succinct and concise elevator pitch. And also missing the mark in their pitch to communicate the value that they bring. And also the like the WIFM for the customer, like that little incentive that makes them also unique, but also gets the customers or the potential customers' interest. And those are two critical things that you need to have. And just building off of what Omar said, it's great if you're able to specify the problem that you're solving for, because it also makes it easier for people to understand how they can work with you.
Sophia, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add from a high level, you need to really define two things. And the first thing is your brand identity. And whether it's you selling a product as a small business or a large business, or you selling an offering to investors, you have to really define and own who you are as a leader or owner and what your brand stands for. And sometimes that's not going to resonate with everyone, and that's okay. But it's so important now because people really want to connect with brands and connect with businesses on a deeper level. So really leaning into that authentically is key. So that's brand identity. The other piece is what's in it for them, what's in it for your customer, what's in it for the people you're pitching for funding, what's in it for them. And so being able to tell that story. And that's where I feel like as people of color, we don't do a great job at touting ourselves or talking about ourselves, or like it's looked at as bragging or overly confident. And the reality is you have to own that story. You have to go to market and you have to say, like, here's what my product's going to do for you and why it's great, or here's what my business is going to deliver for you as an investor, and this is why you should give me funding.
I love that. Such helpful perspective. The last question before we move into the Q&A that we received, what connection, or do you see a connection between diversity, equity, and inclusion and innovation? I'd love to talk about that a little bit. Who wants to jump in first?
So I can jump in here. I absolutely see a connection there, which is part of what our whole business model is built on. It's the fact that, like, typically when people, a lot of times when products are designed or services are designed for the middle, the masses, right? And a lot of times our needs, or the needs of people of color, emerging markets, have these needs that are on the fringes. But we also know that that's where innovation lies. So if you do any kind of ideation or things like that, we're often looking for what's on the fringes, because that's what's going to drive those new ideas and things like that. And so they're very much tied together. And I think the more that we start to understand who are those groups on the outside, how does, as we think about inclusivity in the products that we're serving, or the brands, or as we think about companies that are serving these communities, you can often find those unmet needs, and how you think about those unmet needs can spark an acceleration of ideation that goes beyond that. So for me, I feel like it's very tied into it. When we do ideation for clients, like, we often hear that, like, oh, this was something I got for this, but now we're thinking about how we make it broader. So I think it's very closely tied. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into the Q&A. We got over 20 questions. We're not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to pick some of the most broadly relevant ones. So the first one, when applying for funding, what are organizations looking for in funding applicants or their businesses to determine if they will get an approval? And Omar, I'll throw this to you. One, because you already started talking about this a little bit, getting under the radar as a first step, but would love any additional thoughts that you have there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are a variety of criteria, some of which I mentioned earlier, and you also have to distinguish between funding in the form of financing versus funding in the form of grants, right? So funding in the form of financing, you're thinking about loans, lines of credit, like traditional card products, things of that nature. So when we think about our products and underwriting, we're looking to get to a confidence level of that individual's ability to repay. Right, so that's where some of the criteria I mentioned earlier around time in business, annual revenue, depending on how long that business has been around, we may need to rely on the individual's FICO score versus a business credit score. So keep that in one bucket when you're thinking about financing options as a source of funding for your business. On the other hand, when you think about grants, right, they're not looking, like, the ability to repay is a non-issue, right? So in that case, the criteria may vary. There may be a higher priority on the owner's story, right, or the community that they're attempting to serve, or the problem that they're trying to solve via their product or service. So I want to make sure that, we're not conflating the two, because, to the points that Sophia and LaShawn were mentioning earlier, right, our ability to tell what's in it for the grant making entity, right, they're really going to be looking for that story. But if you're looking for financing, the numbers are really going to do the talking.
Wonderful. If a business could do one key piece of research, startup or otherwise, what type of research would you recommend for them? So I know we have market researchers and marketers, and I think everyone could weigh in on this a little bit from their own experience or in a few different ways. So what one piece of research would you recommend?
I'll jump in. I think, you can research the market, you can research so much, but it all comes down to whether or not there's an opportunity with customers. And so I'm a big advocate of customer research, and there are tools you can use that are very self-serve, and you don't have to be, a professional research or data analyst to do this. There's a tool called Suzy. I used to actually work there. We helped build that company, and you open up your laptop, you put in a question, you can upload images. Do you like this product design or this product design? And within minutes, you get answers. And it just helps you and guides you as a leader to make the right decisions for your customer base.
Mm-hmm. I would just add one more thing, is researching your competition. I think that's important to know, like, what does the landscape look like? Who are your competitors? Who are your direct competitors? And how do you differentiate yourself, amongst the competition, especially the competition that's been there, for years and years? How are you different? I think that comes in play when it's time to apply for grants or any kind of funding, is making sure you have a clear advantage over the other players in the market is, really important to get that funding.
Mm-hmm. Kind of, I was going to say there was a piece that from an investment standpoint, like if you had a piece of money to invest, I would definitely say a segmentation study, because that's something, a customer segmentation or market segmentation, however you want to think about it for your industry, because it lasts for a long time. The market doesn't tend to shift that much over time. And so it's a piece of invest in research where you can start to understand the white space that Stephanie is saying, where the competitors play, where's your opportunity. You can start to understand the barriers and things like that. So from like that standpoint, it does cost. It is something you would actually want to have someone do for you, but from a payout standpoint, you start to get a lot of data and identify some opportunities that's long lasting for you and help you build out a pipeline.
Absolutely love that. And as a researcher, just want to underscore that there's so many opportunities to do research informally, formally, and just always having a line of sight or a connection point to your consumers. And as a qualitative researcher, there's almost zero barriers to doing research, because you can have a conversation with anyone and really begin to understand what and why they're choosing you or why they're not choosing you. So it should really be an important part of any thriving business. Another question that came through: how can or should women and minority-owned businesses work together to support each other? I know we talked quite a bit about networking and different types of coaches and allies, but if you guys could weigh in a little bit more on how women and minority-owned businesses should be working together, that would be great.
I have some input here. Mel?
Go for it, Sophia.
I think we've said this today, but I'll just reiterate. I think it's coming together and sharing ideas and trusting each other and using each other's strengths. Like if there's a group that has strong financial acumen, using them, others that are better at marketing, kind of all leaning in and forming think tanks. I think that's really important, is for us to come together and help each other.
I also just wanted to add other businesses doing business with one another. For example, consulting allocates about nearly 30% of revenue each year as part of their diverse spend. And so that's how you can really make a difference. So once these, once you're providing the coaching and that other business is good to go, invest in them and help support them with dollars and helping them be a success.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add, look for those organizations, especially the local chapters in your market, that align with your business, right? So I mentioned earlier USBC, United States Black Chamber of Commerce. There's also USHCC, U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. There's organizations like this for women-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses. So I encourage business owners to join these organizations, because they're always developing programming for their membership We talked about research earlier, right? You can avail yourself to secondary research. It doesn't have to be exactly on your business. It could be about, tourism coming into the marketplace that the organization is curating for its membership, right? And as you attend the regular scheduled meetings, you're giving yourself that opportunity to network and avail yourself to those moments of inspiration or, those potential partnership discussions like LaShawn was mentioning, right? Maybe there's somebody else in the organization that can be your wholesale supplier for the product that you're selling direct to consumer, right? Or if you meet a business owner that's on another side of town, right? Like shop from me when you're on this side of town, 10, 20% off when you shop from XYZ over on the other side of town, right? So there's opportunities to cooperate with companies that you might originally envision as your competition.
I love that. Another question that actually came through, I think twice in different ways, but it's around AI and using AI in advertising and marketing. Obviously, AI is such a big topic of conversation across the board for so many different businesses, and using it in so many different ways to enhance productivity. Curious what you are all seeing or experimenting with when it comes to advertising, marketing, maybe even customer experience as you think about AI.
I think a positive way to utilize AI is as a thought starter. Anytime there are some business questions that may come up and we may not have an answer, team members have utilized, ChatGPT and other forms of AI just to get some ideas started and to see what comes out in those results and then building off of that. And so that could be helpful if you're struggling with your elevator pitch or how to market your business or what are your competitors saying that is also effective. You can leverage AI in that sense to help jumpstart your ideas and finalizing how you present your product or service.
Any other thoughts on that one?
I'll add. First of all, I think that was a brilliant response, LaShawn. I think it's still in its nascent phases, and there are brands that have gone all in and have gotten it pretty wrong. So I do think it's something that we all need to be experimenting with, and that we can use as supplemental. But creativity is so important to brand building. And that still very much lives with us as owners and creators and creative people.
I love that. Last question. I'm going to ask each of you for one piece of advice, either as a minority or woman-owned business or as a company that partners with minority and women-owned businesses. What piece of advice would you have for the audience? Dawn, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece of advice, we've talked a lot about finding a tribe, but what I would say here is it's about doing something to move forward every day. That's probably the biggest piece of advice. I think we can get so stuck in all of these things that we need to do and criteria and certifications and need to have this, that it can almost feel easy to get stagnant about what to do. It took me forever to figure out how to get paid. That was my first question forever. How does the check get into my bank account? That took a long time for me to get that very simple answer when it came to corporate. And it's easy to get stuck. And I would say there's that thing about moving forward. You can get from California to, New York in the dark by looking 100 feet just going forward. You get to go farther longer. Your 200 feet will look different today than it will 2 years from now or 12 years from now, right? So it's just a matter of moving forward and doing one thing every day. That's the big thing. That's the big thing.
Make progress every day. LaShawn, one piece of advice.
My one piece of advice would be know that you are good enough. Know that you deserve access to opportunities just as much as any other business. And don't stop advocating for yourself and seeking and asking for the business.
Love that. Omar, one piece of advice.
Wow, I'm just blown away by the responses that were already provided. I really don't have anything else to share. I think it was incredibly well said, right? Keep making progress every day and ask for the business. Always be closing.
Sophia.
Yeah, this world is still very much full of rooms of sameness, and the only way that that's going to change is if we continue to lean into ourselves authentically and bring that to the table every single time. So don't feel like just because the room you're entering doesn't look like you that you have to adopt to that. I think there's strength in us just owning the room in our own way.
Love that. Stephanie, last but not least, one piece of advice.
Let's see. I would add to what everyone else said and just say maybe find that those few businesses that you really look up to, you admire, you respect, either the business or the brand or the person behind the business or the brand, and see what you can take away from that business / brand. How can you apply something that you really admire to your own business or brand? And I've done that many times. Where I was like, oh, I really love this initiative. How can I apply this initiative to like what I'm doing? How can I make it my own? But, looking at someone else do it and creating, how can I take what they've done and, on a different scale or a different level to a different customer base in a different way, do something similar. And I think that has really worked well for me. So just who are your favorite people, business owners, brands, and what can you take away from something that you see them doing that you really love? How can you bring that into your own?
I love that, innovating with innovation in your own way. That is brilliant. Thank you so much to all of you for your time and attention, for your perspectives. I know that everything that we talked about today is so incredibly valuable and just a really great set of insights and reminders of what minority and women-owned businesses can be doing. So thank you so much for your brilliance and your time. I'm so excited to share this recording with everyone. And again, excited to share the list of minority and women-owned businesses that want to be featured. So I encourage you all to take a look at that list when it comes out and see how you can, collaborate, cooperate, interact, patronize, whatever it is. So happy Black Business Month, and thank you all. Ellen, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you, Janelle, and thank you to each of our wonderful guests for today's really candid discussion. Yes, be on the lookout for a link to today's recorded presentation that should be available early next week. And in the meantime, you have Janelle's direct contact info, so please feel free to reach out at any time. Have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend coming up.
Thank you.